Remember, the last 18 months, it happened twice in the Cranbrook Supreme Court, resulting in the client being unable to enforce a restrictive covenant before it expired. Now, it's difficult enough to enforce a restrictive covenant, but this person did not even have the opportunity to ever try, and they feel that justice has been denied. So my question to you, Mr. Attorney General, is why is justice being denied for people in my home province of British Columbia?
Well, thank you, Mr. Van Popta, for the question. I'd say to you that I'm acutely aware of the need to complete and fulfill judicial vacancies. I would note for the record that in 7 months in office, I've appointed 74 judges thus far, and there are more to come in the immediate days that follow. I would say to you that I think it's important for comparison purposes to reflect on the record of the previous government that we replaced in 2015. The average number of appointments annually by that government was 65. So by that metric, I'm working twice as fast as the previous government. Secondly, what I would say to you is that it's important to understand how delays occur in the criminal justice system and the civil justice system, but also who's responsible for the delays. The administration of justice in this country is, in the main, the purview of the provinces, and delays are also caused by lack of courts and lack of court staffing across provinces in this country. You mentioned confidence in the administration of justice. I share your concern. It's entrenched in our charter. It's a fundamental part of what I do. What I've seen fit to do is ensure that our JACs have quorum. Those are our judicial appointments committees. They have quorum and that they are able to do the work that they are required to do in terms of nominating judges such that they present recommendations to me. What I've seen alternatively in other provincial levels of government in terms of their own judicial appointments processes is stacking judicial appointments committees with staffers of the governing party. That relates to my province, not yours, but I think that actually undermines confidence in the administration of justice because it injects partisanship in the appointments process. That's not what we need, and we have ensured a nonpartisan process that is robust, that helps us establish judges of the highest quality to represent the diversity of the country. I'll continue to appoint people of that nature.
Well, thank you for that answer. Now, you've said that you're appointing a record number of judges, which is fair enough. I don't argue with that. But the Chief Justice of Canada talked about, this is Richard Wagner, talked about the government's inertia regarding vacancies and the lack of satisfactory explanations for these delays. And this is what he says: the slowness of appointments is all the more difficult to understand since most judicial vacancies are predictable. Now, you said that you're appointing more judges than the Conservatives ever did. Of course, sir, your circumstances are quite different than they were a decade ago when Conservatives were the governing party. You have the reality of large number of demographic of large number of aging baby boomers, but so it is your job to fill those vacancies. It is your job to stand up to the challenges of the day. So my question is whether your government is up to those challenges.
And I would say to you, Mr. Van Popta, that in terms of the number of judges we've appointed since 2015, it's over 700. Last year, the combination of David Lametti and myself, we appointed 100 judges in total. That's never been done in Canadian history. As I said to you, I've appointed 74 in 7 months. That is a faster pace than has ever been seen and twice as fast as the previous government. Is there an issue with respect to appointing judges and the speed with which they are taking place? This is a top priority for me and has been since I took over in this job. What I can say to you in terms of structural changes that I've done is that I have convened all of the heads of the judicial appointment committees. I've written to them about the need for urgency in terms of making suggestions. I have worked with my deputy and other officials in government to facilitate the speed with which security clearances are obtained. I've made structural changes such that the JACs now sit for 3 years and their assessments are valid for 3 years. Every time I tour anywhere in this country, I talk about the need for people to apply, people of the highest quality that represent the diversity of this country. Other aspects that relate to the need for judges are informed by the courts themselves. The courts tell me we need a specific expertise, a family law lawyer, a person who's got expertise in insolvency matters. Sometimes from provinces that don't have significant francophone populations, they still require bilingual jurists because of the needs to address francophone litigants. We are always attentive to the needs of the court and will remain so, and are working very closely with those chief judges to meet the needs of their courts quickly. Thank you.
Wow, 1 second left. Thank you very much. Mr. Mendicino.
Thanks very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, Minister. Thank you and your officials for making your introductory remarks with respect to this important piece of legislation, which I think we're all united in wanting to see a thorough debate about, just given the the social harms that are at play, in particular with regards to vulnerable Canadians, young Canadians, women, and others. I really want to zero in on the part of the bill that deals with the Digital Safety Commission, because on my first reading of this proposed legislation, the powers that would be imbued within this new commission are extensive. And so, again, on my first review of this legislation, it would make certain content inaccessible, would create new investigative powers, it would create a forum in which there could be hearings that could be closed to the public, given certain sensitivities that may be in play, as well as privacy considerations. The Commission would have the power to create regulations and codes of conduct and also levy quite significant penalties. So given that, would you agree, Minister, that the chair of this commission will have quite significant authority in those areas?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mendicino, for the question. What I'd say to you that this is a big step forward for Canada. We thought really long and hard about how to structure it. We looked at sort of different examples around the world, including the E-Safety Commissioner in Australia. But we also thought very hard about the confidence that I think Canadians need to have in this new officer, given the powers that they will wield. And that's why you'll find in the bill itself what is a very pronounced declaration that we will say that the confidence of Canadians will be ensured by having a vote cast in the House of Commons and the Senate of Canada to actually support the implementation and the appointment of that new Digital Safety Commissioner. That gives Canadians, through their elected representatives and through their parliamentarians, a direct line of accountability. And I think the measures that we're taking are significant, but I would also point to the fact that most people are aware of Frances Hogan's, the Facebook famous whistleblower who testified at Congress. She's described this as best-in-class, world-leading legislation for ensuring the accountability we need to see from social media companies, including the significant penalties of up to 6%, or in the case of a contravention of an offense, 8% of global revenue.
On the vote, are you worried that it could become the subject of partisanship? You and I have participated in many votes, and the opposition has every right to use the tools within their lever to encourage debate. But my question is whether or not, given the functions that will be imbued within this particular commission, is putting the vote of the chair of that commission potentially susceptible to making this commission political?
So, Mr. Mendicino, what I'd say to you is that on an issue about protecting children and empowering adults and protecting minorities who are vulnerable, I think we have to rise above partisanship. And I don't mean to sound Pollyannish. I would say to you that as a case in point among those legislations that we've consulted around the world, there's one promoted by the Conservative government of Rishi Sunak in the last 14 months. Conservative governments around the world, liberal governments around the world are acting in this area because the need to act is severe. So that's the first point. The second point is that I believe we can cooperate. And I believe that empowering all parties, from the smallest party or an independent member to the official opposition or the government, to vote on this demonstrates that we want Canadians to have confidence, and we're determined to ensure that they have confidence in such a significant office.
And it's clear you've given a lot of consideration to the model of choosing what will be the first chair of this commission once it's in effect. Would you agree that the chair will have powers that make the role quasi-judicial? In other words, similar to the role that judges play and other individuals who are responsible for the administration of tribunals that will adjudicate on the kinds of issues that are contemplated in this bill?
There's no doubt in sort of determining whether the safety plan meets the standards that are required, in issuing orders, in determining whether offences have occurred and issuing penalties. That has aspects of quasi-judicial function. But what's also important is that, as a lawyer should, I ascertained and verified that we would also have procedural fairness at every step of the way for the parties that are involved, and also a possibility for judicial review in a court of law after the fact. So you get Facebook making a determination, that's reviewed by the new Digital Safety Commissioner. The Digital Safety Commissioner's decision decision can also then be reviewed in a court of law. I'm steadfast in my belief that Canadians have confidence in our world-class jurists and in their ability to execute an impartial determination about the veracity and validity of those decisions. That's important for procedural fairness. It's important for confidence in the administration of justice.
And that's quite clear through your intervention. Are there any other positions that are quasi-judicial in their nature that are subject to a vote in the way that the Digital Service Commission is being proposed in this legislation through both the House and the Senate?
I would need to get back to you on that and consult with my officials. I'm not sure if my officials have the answer to that.
If you could do that, Minister, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you for answers. I'll yield the rest of my time to the Chair.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. I will now go to Monsieur Fortin. La parole est à vous pour 6 minutes.
You have the floor for 6 minutes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being with us this morning. Well, I have several questions that come to mind. I'm going to have to try to be orderly. I would have liked to have more time, but I understand that we have to proceed in this way. So first, questions about legal aid for refugee immigrants. This is something of concern to us at the Bloc Québécois. We have an issue in Quebec, amounts due from the federal government that aren't getting to Quebec, and Quebec is continuing to spend on newcomers. And then official languages where there's $1.2 million of funds destined, but I'd like to know how you're distributing this funding among the provinces. And then there's the issue of systemic racism. And do you wish to assist judges in imposing sentencing that take this into consideration? How is this going to be done? How do you define systemic racism? And what about cybersecurity in courthouses? These are all important and essential issues that unfortunately I will not be able to address this morning. But I will try. And also about your Bill C-63 that you mentioned in your introductory comments. I'm not sure that there's much relationship with budgets, but it is an essential matter. And about C-63, I'm wondering why you didn't introduce the verification process as proposed by Senator Miville-Duchesne, which seems to be a wise idea. But this is not mentioned at all in B-63. Same thing. At the Bloc, we proposed the abolishment of the 2 religious exceptions in the criminal code, which seems to be essential in the current context. How is it that you can still invoke defense about committing a hate crime and spreading hate, basing oneself on a religious text? This seems absolutely abhorrent and runs contrary to the values of all Quebecers. And I'm sure that the rest of Canada also shares these values. So these are all essential issues. But I'm going to focus on 2 important points. Recently, a bill was passed dealing with the creation of a review committee for legal errors. I would like to congratulate you for this. I think we were due. We will have 9 judges on that commission. I'm a little surprised that this was not provided for right from the beginning, but I'd like an amendment about whether these 9 judges are going to be bilingual. This seems to me to be a very conservative goal. Conservative I mean conservative with a small c. I think 9 judges in the entire country shouldn't be so hard to find. But then there was an objection by some of my colleagues, including one of your Liberal colleagues. I'd like to know what you think about this. Shouldn't an effort be made if we wish to have a justice system that's bilingual so that the 9 judges, we're not talking about 900, we're talking about 9 judges, be bilingual? I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you, Mr. Fortin. For legal aid, we have already made... No, I'm sorry, you didn't understand me. These are subjects I would have liked to deal with, but there's only about 3 minutes left. I'd like us to move to the question I'm asking. The Legal Errors Commission. Well, in the last fiscal year, over $80 million were already spent on legal aid. Our devotion to official languages is clear. And you can ask questions to my department. No, I asked one question. The Legal Errors Commission, the Miscarriage of Justice Commission. What about this? Well, may I answer the question, Madam Chair? We are disappointed with the filibustering tactics by the Conservatives with respect to this bill, and how to address the files of people who speak French. Of course, there's always going to be translation.